Part 3, process steps of marketing planning. This is how the process of actually writing a marketing plan goes about. Part of the introduction. The next one would be the walkthrough through a marketing plan. You're listening and watching a presentation for marketing management. My name is Thorsten Strauss and my contact information is in the back. The key here, and this is not an overview over a pure marketing plan, this is an overview over a strategic plan which included a marketing plan that I have done, and I have to develop this model by myself based on writings from strategy, process, content and context. So what I have found here is that in the beginning, usually, unless you have a startup type of situation, you have a recognition phase, and that is really a gap analysis. Hopefully you have very good business intelligence that you are not perceiving the gap too late, that you have some early warning, but usually it starts here with some type of gap analysis indication. Usually sales are dropping or profitability is dropping or you're falling behind on your budgets and plans, so there's type of a recognition. Then could be also a complaint analysis, that customers are complaining or you're hearing complaints from a different type of stakeholder environment. So the KPI reviews, that's what I just talked about, key performing indicators or key performing indexes or indices such as sales, growth, market share, and so on. These usually start the hey, we have a problem. Then you have a analysis phase. That's the second phase where you go deeply into market research. You do basically two types of analysis, that is company analysis and competitor analysis, or you do an internal and external analysis. The external is more than competitor analysis. We will go into that and I will show you some examples. Then you see a strategic model here. You cannot really read it. I will probably provide this to you on an outside thing. This is how you do strategic planning. There's an internal part here on the left. That is this part, and an external part on the right, an organizational part and a functional operational part. That is a different story for a different day. And then you have an implementation part. There is resources planning, a change management might be necessary. That, for example, if you have a drastic change in strategy, direction, closing of business units, moving of the factory or moving of the headquarters, something like this, really involves change management, and that needs to be carefully planned and executed, and also the focus then focusing on implementation. That is really driving then the focus in the implementation part. The key reason why I'm showing it to you, and that is what happens when you write a plan. So the recognition part is quite fast, but you get stuck in analysis. There's always more analysis that you can do than you have time, and there's always more analysis than you really need. The key of a good marketeer and consultant is to quickly determine what do we really need to know, why do we need to know this, how is this relevant for a strategic decision, and not just find out every single piece of information that's inside or outside the company. Also, you might find out something. Let's say we do a market penetration and you do some research and you say, okay, we want to penetrate, you want to penetrate the Southern European market with our product, and you proceed forward and you say this is a great product that worked in the Northern European regions. Now we go to Southern European regions and the potential is X. We have done some market research. We know how many people live there. We can estimate how many people use our product. Then you go into the market and you do some first field testing. So there goes some first quick field testing, a prototype, and you find out the Southern European requirements, taste preferences, perceptions are totally different than the Northern Europeans, which obviously they are, and your product and value proposition is a totally different one, and you have to reposition your product down there. You have to maybe even change the value proposition of your product. You might have to significantly adjust your product, and that means you have to go back, change some of the research, go in a different direction, and that is what this model shows. You usually go forward in analysis, do some formulations, do some testing, and bam, you're back. More analysis, more testing, more formulation, until you run through this iterative process a few times until you come to a state where you say, okay, now it is pretty sure the logic is holding up and we can prove that the claims that we're making are substantiated in logic. The message to you: do not and never ever start writing analysis for 80% of the time. Then you do strategy, then you do implementation, and you find a major flaw in your logic in implementation, and you have to redo analysis at the whole time. You do these parts in parallel. You write all parts at the same time. You might think that it's not possible to write some formulation and implementation while you write analysis, but you also need to think about to drive it from the back. Do a hypothesis-driven approach and say, if this is true, then we would reaching those type of businesses. How can we prove in our analysis that something is true or not? And this type of thinking, and that comes from consultancy, is usually much more efficient and much more effective than first researching the world, trying to drive some conclusions from it, and then making an implementation plan. Also, implementation in itself is a discipline that is very different from analysis and formulation, and what you might think in your nice strategy sitting on the board basically and then doing strategy is absolutely not feasible in implementation. For example, the driving distance of a sales rep totally varies by city and by country because due to traffic and maybe other local customs, such as people are not available during certain times of the day. So you need to really touch base with execution, with implementation, and verify your assumptions in your calculations, in your projections through your research on the implementation side. Main message to you: write all parts at the same time, and you will go through an iterative process. You will change some of the later parts of your plan, but do not just write analysis for 80% of the time and then try to derive a strategy and an implementation plan. That is the end of the part. Really quickly, I'm Thorsten Strauss. You find my LinkedIn information here under Thorsten Strauss. How to MKT under Twitter. Contact me at the University of Antwerpen at uantwerpen.be or at howto, which is MKT, how to market mkt.com. I have been an executive in international marketing consultant. I am a lecturer at the University of Antwerpen, born in Germany, educated in the United States, have an executive MBA from Denmark, worked extensively in Americas, Europe and the Middle East, and have experience with doing business in Asia. My roles were mainly product manager, European marketing manager and global marketing director. I have led several projects, written numerous strategic plans. Highlights are market penetration plans, geographic expansion plans, as well as global portfolio optimization and more operational plans.